Hello, everybody. Basil and I are here to talk to you today about this question that came up actually a few times recently, where people were saying, why don't I enjoy games anymore? You know, I used to enjoy games and now I just kind of don't. What is going on? And how can we fix that, right? So today I want to break down what I think are the main causes for that, and then what I think and what I suggest as a possible solution. So the number one cause that I can think of is that we've all seen some shit, haven't we? I mean, if you're my age or even younger, you've played a fuck ton of games and you're just not that impressed anymore because you've seen a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff has already been done and tried, and the fascination of the first video game you play or the first time you do something cool in a video game is kind of gone, right? That's behind you, and you can't really return to that actively every time you play a new game, and that's okay. Number two is games that have a sort of addictive element to them. This could be PvP games like Dota 2 or Counter-Strike, whatever it is that entices you. Some of those games can have the property of having you come back even though you're not actually enjoying yourself playing those games. And in that case, I suggest you step back like I did from Dota 2 if you find that you're not actually enjoying yourself in the game and you're just doing it out of some sort of addictive or compulsive behavior. Number three is the fact that AAA games and projects are just much more conservative nowadays. And because the stakes are so high for one of those big projects, they want to get it right. And they don't experiment that much. And we see this very clearly where indie games are actually the ones pushing the envelope in different and new directions very often. And bigger AAA projects evolve incrementally and slowly, but they never make giant, huge changes because those represent a huge risk monetarily. And you can think of some exceptions where studios did take a bigger risk. I could think of maybe Death Stranding, where they truly did something quite different with the gameplay. A lot of people disliked it for it. A lot of people liked it, like myself. But ultimately, not every project can do this with how high the stakes are. So once again, this is another thing that's out of your control. Let's talk about the one factor, and I left it for last because I think it's the one that's actually under your control and that we can do something about. Number four, and perhaps the more interesting one, because we can actually do something about it, is the fact that our dopamine is being constantly hijacked by social media in general. Everywhere you go to on the internet, the game in town is to keep you on the site, keep you engaged, keep you clicking on the next thing. Here's another piece of content. Here's another thing. And that, I believe, has driven us to this low attention span state that we're constantly in. We're constantly mainlining data, media, information, entertainment. And if that's not happening, it feels off, right? We can't just be in silence. We have to be absorbing a podcast. We have to be listening to a talk. So in an age where multitasking appears to be the shit and appears to be what everybody is seeking, I'm gonna tell you what I think is the solution to this problem, for me at least. Single tasking. Stay with me, people. Single tasking, okay? How about you take the one thing you're doing and you put all your fucking attention on it to the point where you can't be bored by it. Seriously, try this. Go wash the dishes and pay all of your attention to doing that. You'll find that there's no bandwidth left to be bored. So I know this is a silly example and maybe actually difficult to do because it is something quite mind-numbing to do to, wash the dishes. But actually, for me, applying this concept of single tasking has helped me tremendously because I find that the more attention we put onto something, the more we can actually squeeze out of it, not just in terms of productivity, but also enjoyment. So for me, when I look at some of these story games, when I put like half of my attention to it and I have a podcast on the side or a video on the side, actually my enjoyment of that game goes down dramatically. And I've tested this in many different titles. And it's not a coincidence that we've seen a resurgence of what you would call like Zen titles that are almost meant for you to play while doing something else. This is the day and age for this stuff to shine, right? You can play a game that doesn't require much bandwidth from you and maybe listen to a show at the same time, and we all enjoy that. Sometimes there's nothing wrong with that necessarily, but for me, if it's a story game or something that actually requires your engagement, trying to focus solely on that is really cool. And I've found some new enjoyment in games by just shutting everything off, minimizing Discord and all that stuff, and just actually telling myself for 30 minutes or 1 hour, whatever it is, I'm gonna be playing this game to the exclusion of everything else, right? And I'm gonna allow myself to whether it's be bored or be engaged, but I'm gonna fully sort of be in this experience for some amount of time. And I've had some really good results with getting some of that enjoyment back that I personally had found missing in some of the current games. And I found that it's not as much the games themselves, it's actually me, right? And I've seen this in other things like reading. Reading has become more difficult for me as well because of this dopamine rush and the circuitry being hijacked by all these other exciting things. It is a bit difficult for me to sit down and read a book. It's actually something I'm working on and continually trying to improve my ability to focus on just one thing. And even in my work, this has helped tremendously. So I work as a software engineer, and you may think that multitasking is really productive, but actually focusing on something to a high level is where the money is at, right? And there's a lot of productivity lost actually in context switching. So if you're constantly going between one and another thing. So actually focusing on one thing can be very powerful, not just for your enjoyment in games, but for a lot of things in life, and can make a lot of things that you would consider boring actually engaging. Actually, this is the sort of conversation we have over on my Twitch stream while we play games. So I'd love for you to jump over there because really it's a bit sad. All of these conversations that we have over there are sort of lost, and you guys over here never get them. So this is why we do the vlogs. I try to sort of bring you some of those here, but if you enjoyed them, there's much, much more over there. So again, would love for you to give me a shot and jump over there. But outside of that, let me know down below, have you tried this idea of single tasking? Are you more of a multitasker? I know that a lot of us have become that in this day and age, but tell me down below also if this works for you. I would love to hear it. And with that, I leave you. Have a great week. Bye-bye.